Rudolph and the economics of belonging. Every December, a ritual unfolds that most of us never question. Lights are strung, songs are played, and in the familiar chorus of holiday melodies, one story always returns: the tale of Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. It arrives each year as a harmless nursery song, soft and sentimental, but beneath its jingle lies a precise moral economy, one that tells us again and again who is worth loving and why. The story begins with deformity. Rudolph is born wrong. His nose glows red when all the others do not. It is a minor deviation, a trifle, and yet it marks him as unacceptable. The community of reindeer, an image of cheerful uniformity, immediately excludes him. His peers mock him, the herd disowns him. What is being dramatized here is not cruelty but consensus, the invisible structure by which any society defines what counts as normal. Rudolph's glowing nose is treated as contagion. His difference offends not because it harms anyone, but because it cannot be ignored. To the philosopher, this is the primal scene of civilization itself, the moment when visibility becomes guilt. The marked body, the one that glows, stutters, trembles, or simply refuses to blend, becomes the scapegoat through which a community reaffirms its coherence. Every age, every institution needs its Rudolphs to feel righteous about itself. And so the song, innocent as it sounds, is the seasonal rehearsal of exclusion. But then comes the fog, the crisis that makes necessity of what was formerly despised. Santa's empire, vast and efficient, is suddenly threatened by bad weather. The entire system risks collapse. And it is at this point, when the hierarchy trembles, that Rudolph's difference acquires value. The same light that once provoked ridicule now becomes indispensable. Santa calls him forward, not as a son, not as a friend, but as a solution. "Won't you guide my sleigh tonight?" The exile becomes a hero, but only because his difference can now be instrumentalized. Here, the fable crosses from cruelty into theology. For what the story offers as redemption is not love, but utility. Rudolph is not forgiven, he is repurposed. His uniqueness becomes capital. The herd does not repent, it rebrands. The song even celebrates this transaction with a kind of cheerful hypocrisy. Then all the reindeer loved him. Loved him for what? For his light, not for his loneliness, not for the nights he spent wandering outside the herd, but for the way his suffering could be made to serve their mission. This, of course, is how most systems work. The world praises difference only when it can exploit it. The world loves the wounded healer, the visionary misfit, the exceptional survivor, but only after their pain has been converted into productivity. Until then, difference is a nuisance. Afterward, it becomes a marketable virtue. Santa himself, in this light, is not a saint but a CEO. The North Pole is an industrial complex, a site of endless production and surveillance. The elves toil in anonymity. The list-keeping echoes the logic of data capitalism. Reward and punishment are dispensed according to compliance. And when the machinery falters, when fog obstructs the smooth delivery of gifts, the company recruits the one previously deemed defective. It is the same pattern one finds in human labor markets, in politics, in culture. The marginalized are ignored until their difference becomes a new form of leverage. Rudolph's story, then, is not about inclusion. It is about conditional redemption. It teaches that the outcast may return to the fold, but only if he proves himself useful. It teaches that you may keep your nose, your mark of otherness, but only if it shines in service of the system. The tragedy is that the child listening to the song does not hear this subtext. The child hears a happy ending. The once excluded one becomes beloved. And so the myth persists, training each new generation to believe that belonging can be earned by performance. It implants in the psyche the same dangerous equation that governs adult life: I will be loved when I am needed. But what happens when you are not needed? What happens when the fog clears and the sleigh no longer requires your light? The song does not tell us. There is no sequel in which Rudolph ages, in which he is replaced by a newer, brighter novelty. We never hear of the day when his light begins to dim. What happens to the hero when the system that exalted him moves on? That silence is the true lesson of the song. It reveals what all conditional love conceals: disposability. The system that praises you for your gift will discard you for the same reason once it ceases to function as capital. The philosopher must ask, what would love look like without utility? What would belonging mean if it were not contingent on service? For that, we must return to an earlier moment in the story, before the fog, before the recruitment, before the sleigh. There, in the stillness of exile, Rudolph's light shines for no one. Is simply what it is: unnecessary, embarrassing, beautiful. That moment, the private radiance of the unrecognized, is the only scene of true grace. Is the moment of being rather than earning. This is where the myth might have gone differently. Imagine if Santa had seen the red glow and, instead of finding a use for it, had simply said, "You're beautiful." Imagine if the herd had learned to love the one who glowed, not because he could guide them, but because his light made the world less dull. That would have been a Christmas story worthy of God. But of course, that is not our story. We live in the world of usefulness. We call it meritocracy, we call it progress, we call it civilization. The song is a mirror. Its cheerfulness disguises the cold calculus by which we all live. Still, something subversive lingers in Rudolph himself. His glow is involuntary. He cannot turn it off. Even when he tries to hide it, it breaks through. There is something divine in that refusal, a refusal to conform, even to self-betrayal. His existence undermines the very system that exploits him. The song cannot entirely domesticate him, because his light remains a form of protest. That, perhaps, is why children love him instinctively. They sense the rebellion. They recognize in his glow their own small defiance, the secret knowledge that they, too, are different in some way, that their difference might one day be punished, or worse, ignored. And yet they sing, and in singing they reclaim him. Adults forget this. They sing the song as nostalgia, as decoration. But children know. They know that Rudolph is not merely a helper. He is the proof that strangeness can survive. And that is why the story endures, despite its hypocrisy. It encodes, beneath its surface, a dangerous hope that one's uniqueness might yet light the way through the world's fog. To say this differently, the story is wrong, but the symbol is right. The moral fails, but the metaphor endures. There's a reason every culture produces its own version of Rudolph, the wounded, radiant outsider who becomes the reluctant guide. In some traditions, it's the trickster. In others, the prophet. In others still, the artist. Always the one who glows against the grain. Always the one who cannot hide. Always the one whose punishment becomes his purpose. In that sense, Rudolph belongs to a lineage as old as humanity, from Moses stammering before Pharaoh, to Socrates drinking the hemlock, to Van Gogh painting light in his own blood. Each is mocked isolated, then sanctified. Each is loved too late. So perhaps the true task is to love them early. To love the glow while it still embarrasses us. To love the difference before it saves us. To love the unnecessary because it exists. That would be the reversal of the Christmas myth, not usefulness redeemed, but uselessness exalted. A theology of gratuitous grace. And yet, one cannot entirely escape Santa's world. The system is real. The fog always returns. And so we move between these poles, the purity of being and the necessity of doing. The only freedom lies in remembering the difference. Rudolph, in the end, becomes a philosopher's parable, a story about how recognition and exploitation are so easily confused. The song wants to be about joy, but it is really about debt. Then all the reindeer loved him is not a celebration, it is a receipt. Still, there is something in that light, that involuntary, uncommodifiable glow that points beyond the transaction. Even when the system claims him, even when Santa harnesses him, the light still belongs to Rudolph. It cannot be owned. It burns without permission. That is the secret that keeps the story alive, the possibility that somewhere, even in the machinery of commerce and conditional love, something sacred still shines. So perhaps we can keep the song after all, but not as comfort, as critique, as reminder. Sing it not to celebrate inclusion, but to mourn what inclusion costs. Sing it not to teach your children to be useful, but to teach them to remain radiant. And when the fog comes, and it always comes, let them remember that their light is not a tool, is a declaration. Let them glow, even when no one is watching, especially then, because that, and not the applause of the herd, is what belonging really means.